Hello guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're back on the Mini Cooper and we're going to be doing a brake flush. If you guys need to change the brake fluid in your car, this may help. This is a Mini Cooper 2015 F55 5-door 1.5 diesel. So the brake fluid in your car should be changed probably every 3 to 4 years. The Mini Cooper is flagging up on the dash that the brake fluid is due a service. I think that is after 3 years. I don't think this car has a sensor to detect moisture in the fluid, so I think that is just purely a 3-year reset counter. I'm going to basically pull all 4 wheels off and bleed the fluid. Now there's a few ways to do this. You can gravity bleed. There is the old-fashioned having 2 people, 1 pump, 1 undo the nut on the caliper and bleed that way. You can do it that way. That's a bit old-fashioned, but you can. There's a 1-person kit which essentially is like a bucket of fluid. So when you release the pedal and come and tighten up the nipple on the caliper, it will not draw any air because the tube is actually under the fluid. I've never used that, but you can get them. They're pretty cheap. What I use is this here. So you do need you need an air tank, you need an air compressor, and basically the air compressor uses the air to suck the fluid out of the caliper. You can get, which is what everyone recommends, and I will pick one up soon because I do have to change the fluid on quite a few cars. I've got the Evoque and the Focus and also the Mustang. That is about 2 or 3 year old, so that probably needs doing as well. So the brake fluid reservoir on the Mini Cooper is under this cover, and you essentially get a canister which you attach to the top and you pump it to pressurize it, and then you can basically just go around every caliper, crack the nipple on the caliper, the fluid comes out. Once it's clear, close the nipple and you're done. I mean, that it seems like the best way forward. So the brake fluid I'm going to be using is just some Castrol brake fluid Dot 4. This is what this car requires. I always have at least 1 extra one, so there is another one up there in case I need it. Now with brake fluid, once you pop the seal, I think you get a year or 2. I might say on the back somewhere, but basically you get a couple of years and the bottle obviously will get moisture in it and it's no good. So as a rule, I never store open brake fluid. So some people say you can flush half a litre, some people flush several litres through the brake lines. Now this fluid isn't that bad, and to be honest I think a litre is probably overkill, but what I'll do is I'll just go through the whole bottle because I'd rather just use the full bottle than discard the bottle, and I can also use this bottle to put the fluid into. I usually just check the colour. You can tell this stuff comes out almost clear. It's like a nice goldeny colour. This stuff in here, after well, 3 years isn't too bad, but once you start getting 5, 6, 7 and so on, the colour goes pretty nasty. When you're pulling it through the line, you can see the fluid coming through, and then when the new fluid comes through, you can barely even tell it's in the actual line itself. As with everything, I'll leave a link down below, but these pens are really cheap. I think I paid like £6, £5, maybe not even that. You remove the cap off the reservoir, remove the cap, put that into the fluid, push that button, and that will tell you the moisture level of your brake fluid. Now as you can see there, it says 1 and 2% is okay. Generally I believe 3% is usually about 2 to 3 years old, and 4% is like 4 years and upwards. If you get 3%, that is really when you should be thinking, yeah, I should change it. Definitely consider doing it and planning to do it. If you got 4%, do it as soon as you possibly can, because the moisture will rot your lines from the inside out. So it may look okay externally, but inside you've got that moisture in it. It's not great. So yeah, if you get it 4%, definitely consider changing your fluid. So it is a flathead screwdriver. Just rotate these around, and then you need 10mm. There's a nut down here. Remove this rubber strip out your way. Oh, there's one here as well. And then this will just lift up and slide out. Let's remove the cap. Remove the screen. You'll need to do this because if you don't, when you're putting the fluid in, it takes quite a while to siphon through. It's best to remove it. Also, you might find there's some debris on the bottom of the reservoir, which is fine. If it's there, I've seen that a few times. It's nothing to be alarmed about. So testing that fluid is actually saying the fluid's perfectly fine. which is surprising. I thought it would have been, you know, a lot higher than that, but never mind. This actually does work. I have actually tested this. The Mustang is, well, the Mustang had the brakes flushed in 2020, so it's 3 years ago. And when I checked it, it was reading at 3%. So this is working okay. Technically, we don't really need to flush this fluid, but the car's saying we need to do it. And I'm going to put in the service history that the fluid has been flushed. So I will still go ahead, bleed the calipers, and at least we know it's done. So we need to get the car up off the ground. I'm going to go around and loosen all these wheel nuts, and then raise the car up and remove the wheels. Now, with these quick jacks, I could technically raise the car up and you can actually get access to the nipple at the back. So I'm going to be doing a full inspection on this car while I'm doing these brakes, so that's another reason why the wheels need to come off. Plus you guys can see much easily with the wheels off. Let's get this car up off the ground, and then once it's up we can remove the wheels. That bonnet might hit, but I'm waiting for the first click because I don't need to go all the way up. There we go. Knock it back down. Good to go. The wheels are all off, and each caliper has a nipple like this. There's a rubber boot. Remove that rubber boot, and that is the nut that you need to crack open to bleed the fluid out of. So I've been around and put some WD-40 on every one of them. It's probably not required, but it's just to play it safe, because if one of these snap off, which I've had in the past, it is a pain. The way it works is you should go to the furthest one from the reservoir. So this is where it starts. So the longest point from there would be the back left, the near side rear. Then you'll go to the other side, then you'll come down here, and then finally here. Sometimes if you have any debris, which I've looked, I can't see any in the bottom of this. There's a tiny bit, don't know if you work it out, but at the very bottom there's about 3 or 4 little dark specks. So what I normally do is pull the end off this, so it's just a tube, and then I'll pull the trigger and put the tube in and just kind of siphon the bottom of the tank. Once I'm happy it's clean, I'll then fill this back up right to the top of fresh fluid and then start bleeding the calipers. So like I say, I just take the end off and quite simply just siphon the bottom of the tank. Just make sure there's nothing in there, because you don't want to pull anything down the lines if you don't have to. You can get right in the corners. Next step is to put the fluid in. Make sure it's brand new and sealed. Don't be putting all fluid through. You don't want to find one of these on the shelf, it's been there for 5 years, then put it in, do all this effort, then realise that it's actually contaminated. Make sure it's nice and full, like so. We'll just leave that in there, and that is it. So the next step is to go to the caliper and bleed it. So you guys are up top, 11mm, place it over, and you don't want to, you just want to break it basically, you don't want to undo it. See, that's quite tight. I'm just going to thread it back in. And then back out again. And back in. There we go. So I think now we're ready to bleed. They're not normally that tight. That was actually quite hit and miss. I was a bit concerned it was going to snap, because you guys can't see, but I was applying more pressure than I probably would have liked to do. It's quite difficult to pull the trigger, hold this on, and use the spanner. So there's actually a clip on the handle, if you can see, and when you pull it back you can actually hook the handle in. The air compressor will kick in, so it will get quite loud. So quite simply I'm just going to pull this handle back, hook it in place, you guys can see, and then that gives me two hands, and all I need to do, well, the fluid's coming back out because I've had it upside down. All I need to do is uncrack this nut about half a turn and then put this on top of the nipple and just keep turning it until the fluid continuously comes out of this. So we're done with that. I have tightened it up, put the cap back on, and that is it. So the next step is to refill the reservoir and then go to the other side and then the two at the front. So what I'll do next is the rear one off camera, and I will basically pull through this whole tank down to the min, fill it back up, and then we'll come to the front left, and I will come back to you guys and show you where we're at that point. That caliper is identical, the calipers at the front are slightly different, slightly bigger, but yeah, I'll come back once the back is complete. Back one is done. That went brilliantly, that was much better than the other side. So let's go over to the front left now, the passenger side, and we will bleed this one. So same thing, 11mm, hook the hose on, undo it, bleed it till, well, normally till it runs clear, but the fluid's pretty good in this car, so it's hard to really see it, but I'm gonna bleed through probably 200mm, something like that, and I'll do 200 or so on the other side. But yeah, let's get this one done now. Let's see if this one is tight. No, that one's loose as well. So that back left one was just the one off, so we'll put this on. Now you can put a bit of grease or something around the nipple if you want to, because you may notice you get a few air bubbles. Now the air bubbles is not air in the line, don't worry. With this setup, because you're basically sucking, you will get a tiny bit of air go through the seal and a tiny bit of air possibly through the threads, and that's what the bubbles are. If you had a spongy pedal and you were getting bubbles, that's why. But these brakes are perfectly fine, so I know the bubbles in this line is nothing to do with what's in the lines, it's just literally the end bit. And it's always done that, and there's never been a problem. So let's carry on. About half a turn. And there it goes. There's some small bubbles, but that is just off the vacuum. And we'll keep going till we use what we need to use up, and we'll tighten it up and call this one done. So this is the last one to do, and like all the others, probably sick of me talking about it now, but essentially set yourself up, get your 11mm, half a turn, maybe a turn, depends how much you need, and the fluid will come out, and once you are happy, close it up. So I'm going to flush this until it's clear, and then we can call this done. There it goes. It's a bit dark. There you go, it's already changed. You can see it's dark at the back and it's clear at the front. There you go, the whole thing's clear now. So that is, technically that's enough, but we'll go a bit longer, and we can almost call this job done. crystal clear. So we'll just put the screen back in, tighten that down. So we'll put this cover back on and put the car back together, take it for a quick drive, make sure the brakes feel okay. Before I will drive, I will obviously pump the brakes a few times, start the engine, pump them a few times, go back and forwards 2 or 3 times and stop. If it all feels good, take it for a drive. You don't have to, but you can double check that you haven't lost any fluid. You should not have lost any fluid, because if you are losing fluid, you will lose your brake pedal. But come back, check it. You shouldn't need to top it up, but you can if you need to. Make sure it's at max, put the cover back on, and then you can call this one done. The last thing you need to do is reset the service light, but I'll do that in a separate video, because this video is probably quite long enough, and someone who just wants to reset the light doesn't want to have to sit and watch all this, so I'll do that in a different video. So all you need is, what, a 10mm, a flathead screwdriver to remove this panel. You need something to bleed the brakes. There's a few options out there. This one works. This is probably the last time I'll use this. I will be getting the better version in the future. The screen was a bit difficult to get out, so you might need a pry tool or something, a flathead screwdriver even, to pull the screen out. You want 11mm spanner. Also, one of these guys are handy as well if you don't have a 11mm socket, but either one will do the job. And yeah, basic tools. Brake fluid tester, handy to have, never had one before. I just went off colour, but I quite like the idea of having one of these. I mean, you can tell that's a different colour. I'm going to put this back together. I'll do another video on how to reset the service light on the computer. And while I've got the car up, I'm going to give this car a full inspection off camera. Going to go around all the suspension, under the car, the exhaust, everything. Make sure it's all sound. I'll use some lubricant, some white grease. Just do your general yearly maintenance on the hinges and on the springs on the rear handbrake, stuff like that. Yeah, so we'll end this one here, guys. So thank you for watching. Like always, please like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.